is the Revisionary Podcast with your host, Juan Carlos. The Revisionary Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Revisionary Podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Juan Carlos. So I am actually very excited to be here today with you guys. Thank you for listening. If this is your first time listening to the Revisionary Podcast, this is a podcast where guests come on and tell a nonfiction story about their lives. They wish things had gone a little bit differently. Afterwards, they have an opportunity to retell the same exact story, but this time they get to change any facts or details about the story that they want, and then we discuss the impact of their changes. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, I love this concept, so here we are. Now, before we get started in today's episodes, I have a few announcements that I wanted to make. First and foremost, I want to say thank you and give a shout out to all of our fans listening out in Ireland. When I launched this podcast, I did not know that I'd have a following in Ireland, so I want to say that you guys are truly the GOATs, because you didn't have to listen, but you are, and I love that you do. And please keep listening and continue to spread this over in Ireland. So let's do that. Also, I want to say thank you for all of you guys that have been following, have continued to listening. Thank you for rating and subscribing. Please keep doing that. Make sure you're following us on the Revisionary Podcast on Instagram, and make sure that you follow us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Revisionary Podcast. We are there, and it's very important. So that's how we continue to grow, and please keep doing that. Also, I have a very special announcement today. A lot of you seem to really love Gianmarco, and you loved his episode, and you all thought he was really funny. So we've decided that we're going to do a special introductory event where we bring Gianmarco on, and we'll have it on Instagram Live, and, we'll talk to Gianmarco and follow up and see what's been going on in his life since the episode has been released. If you're interested, please follow us. Make sure you're following us so that you don't miss it. Come on live and ask questions. Talk to Gianmarco. See what he's thinking. See how he's feeling. And, get all those burning questions you had for him about his story answered. So that should be a fun opportunity. We're looking to do that on November 19th at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure that you tune in for that. Don't miss that. An easy way to make sure you don't miss it is, again, make sure you're following us on Instagram and make sure that you like us on Facebook so that you don't miss this event. And finally, today, I'm very excited to bring on yet another comedian, Malorie Bryant. Now, first and foremost, I have to say I really enjoy spending time with Malorie. I think she's hilarious. She's very goofy, which I really love about her. Like, she's kind of a very silly person. And I've always kind of vibed with that personality type. Also, Malorie used to let me sell tickets outside of her venues for stage time, so I've always been very appreciative of her for doing that. As some of you guys who've listened to previous episodes know, that is called barking. So I used to bark for Malorie, so that's always been wonderful. And honestly, she's just a genuine person. I just enjoy having conversation with her because of how genuine and how positive she has always been whenever I'm speaking to her. So I'm really excited to have her on. And without further ado, let's go ahead and see if we can get Malorie on the line. Hello, Malorie. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm really excited to have you today. How have you been?
Thank you so much.
No, honestly, it is an honor to be sitting in front of you today. I always look forward to partaking in conversations with you. So there's that.
Yeah, hell yes. I'm really excited too.
So what have you been up to lately?
I have stayed in New York during this whole wild 2020.
Right.
And I got the idea back in July when things started to, gently, if you will, open. I started running a rooftop comedy show in Bushwick, and it sort of just took off. The venue itself is now doing shows 7 nights a week. My show is specifically one of the prime time shows on Friday night, and it's literally been my saving grace.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Because of course, every comedian, the first few months of quarantine, Zoom is great. Don't get me wrong. Love me some Zoom shows. But I was just, I need to get on stage. I need to feel live audiences. And, every day I was postulating, how do I make live comedy happen again? And then lo and behold, I remember, not lo and behold, that's not really the right phrase. It's like, I found a rooftop. I don't know. But I was doing this show back in the fall, and these folks, their venue is called the Tiny Cupboard, and it literally was a tiny little cupboard in Bushwick. And they had approached me and they said, hey, would you want to do a show with us in the springtime and or summertime on our roof? And I was like, yes. And then that was in February, March, and then the world ended. And then the world kind of started again in July. So that's what I've been up to. I feel so grateful and so blessed to have found the space and to be able to do comedy again live.
I've been looking at all of these pictures from the events, and every single time the place looks packed to the brim. And, I think it's a huge accomplishment that you were able to start that and get the ball rolling on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really am honored. Of course, the first show, I didn't know if people were going to be ready to come out. And what's beautiful is because it's open air, obviously not the ideal space for comedy. We need low ceilings. We want everybody to be packed in, so that the laughter reverberates off the walls. But in this case, with this rooftop comedy show, it was a place where people could spread out. The roof is huge. Like, it has a capacity to fit 200, if you can imagine. But obviously social distanced, we fit, 50, 60 people up there, and everyone could be 6 feet apart. And it's a really dope experience. It's very New York, and it has an incredible view over the city. So you get pictures, you get selfies, you get the whole thing, because it's just incredible. And then obviously the comedy is, what I've noticed is all outdoor shows are challenging, but the rooftop, the laughter still dissipates, but it's a little bit better than like being at street level, if that makes sense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it has grown. My first show, we had barely, maybe 12, 15 people. Mm-hmm. And now we get 60 people, maybe a little bit more every now and again.
Something light, you know what I mean? Just, whatever. No big deal.
Yeah. But it's been, like I said, it's been my saving grace, and it's given me that opportunity to be able to really work my material in front of real people and get that live feedback.
So you mentioned how the laughter feels a little bit better than it does when it's on street level, but how well can you actually hear them?
Yeah. The thing is that I've realized is you can definitely hear the laughter. It's just, it doesn't last as long, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The laugh, and then it's like, boom, it's like, it goes into the air. And the other night I had done my first indoor show, and it was 25% capacity. And I won't say where it is because I don't know for sure if we're supposed to be doing indoor shows.
Sure.
And there was about 20 people in this space that could hold, 80 to 100, right? And just hearing 20 people laugh in, low ceilings, having a microphone that would also, vibrate off the walls, the reverberation of the laughter was like, oh my God, these 20 people sound louder than outdoor comedy with, 50, 60, right. Wherever you are, 100 people. And you're like, holy shit. I had forgotten my first indoor show. Because it's been 7 months, I had forgotten what indoor laughter felt like and sounded like. I was so used to outdoors, which granted, hell, outdoors saved me, because what else, Zoom is wonderful, but you know what I mean? So it definitely, it's weird. It's like you totally hear it. Absolutely. Because when you have that many people on a roof, you're going to hear the laughter, but it's not as, I don't know if the word is boisterous but yeah. Obviously because it's open air, so it just dissipates really quickly.
Fair enough. No, it makes absolute sense. You would think that doing these outdoor shows, there'd be less pressure, because whether you're bombing or not, you really don't know. And I feel like if I've learned anything from these Zoom shows, is what I thought were really 10-minute sets were actually just 6-minute sets and then 4 minutes of total laughter. That is not at all a humble brag. Yes, it was. It was a humble brag. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I think what you're sort of referring to is just like, you have to, especially on Zoom, you have to pause.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to pause so much because, it also helps you with timing as well. Like, I think that's one thing I really learned, if anyone, could say this, but like, I did learn a lot from Zoom. I learned that your timing, because there's a lot of people watching, it's slightly delayed, right? So like, you say your joke, and I'm a fast talker, and I run through my jokes when I'm on stage, but on Zoom specifically, I have to like wait and hold, like, for them to laugh, and then I go. So you're totally right. And then also, it does translate to the stage, and I think that I did learn, because I've written a lot of new material over quarantine, that I worked on Zoom obviously first, and then brought it to the live stage. And I also found, which I never would really pause very much before. You can hear me talking now. I'm not pausing. I don't even breathe. I just suck in air through the mouth. I don't know what I'm doing. Am I breathing? Is she breathing? I don't know. But I learned to take more time and hold, if you will, where I want them to laugh.
Right. No, that's crucial. Why don't we go ahead and jump right into this, Malorie? Stage is yours. Go ahead and tell us your story.
16-year-old Malorie, she was a risk taker. Like, I don't know how I got this like thing in me, but like, I just did things. I would do anything, and music meant the world to me. Okay. So like, first, it was Napster, right?
Right.
Then it was LimeWire. Yeah, LimeWire, baby. And like, I didn't care if my computer was riddled with viruses.
Right.
I was going to download everything.
Did you ever use Kazaa?
Oh, of course, Kazaa. Yes.
I forgot about that till just now.
Yeah, Kazaa, right?
Yeah.
And so I always downloaded music, and I would like make my away messages, like, on AIM or AIM, like I forget like what the cool kids called it, like AIM, AIM, AOL Instant Messenger. Like, all of my away messages were always like song lyrics, because I was so cool. I was like, Stuck in the Middle with You. That was one of my favorites. All I Want to Do Is Lose Myself in Your Room. Another favorite. One of my favorite bands, She Thinks She's the Queen of the Neighborhood. Well, I've got news for you. She is. That's right. That's Bikini Kill. You're welcome, for all you people. I was just cool. I was cool. I was a risk taker. My screen names were cool. I never had numbers in my screen names, like I wasn't one of those kids. Like, my claim to fame screen name was Sex the Moon.
Sorry, say that again?
Sex the Moon. You're welcome. Was I a virgin? Absolutely. Okay. 100%. All right. And my MySpace username was Private Dance Party. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
PPP. You're welcome. Okay.
So you were meant for the stage. That's what I'm learning.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was always making out with like 2 dudes at once. And I was giving out blue balls everywhere I went, dangling my V card, it was like Me Too bait, it was wild. It was wild. And one of these dudes that I was making out with, he was in a band, and his band like was pretty successful. They were very talented. He wrote all the music. They recorded it on Fruity Loops. Does anyone remember Fruity Loops?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Well, baby. And this guy, he was super talented. Like, he even made, like, he silk screened his own t-shirts, the merch, the buttons. He did it all. And I would go to all of his shows. I'd wear the t-shirts. I'd wear the buttons. I'd hold his hand. Okay. And occasionally I'd let him touch my boob. You're welcome. Okay. No, let me just be clear. Like, we weren't punk. I wasn't punk. Like, to be clear, like, punk kids wore like an excessive amount of buttons. I would wear like 1 or 2. Okay. Yes. And I was like what people would call like a scene kid. It was like the phrase that came before like hipsters. You're never ever supposed to admit that. So anyway.
Wait.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, you grew up in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of this was happening in California?
All of this is happening in California, yes.
Got it. Were you from the warm part of California or the cold part?
Yeah. Southern California.
Got it. Okay. That makes a difference.
Huntington Beach. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I don't even know like how this exactly happened, but like I was going to an arts high school and I was in college, or not college. I was in high school and I was going to this arts high school, and I don't even know like how exactly it happened, but there were these 3 girls and they were in a band and they lost their lead singer. And I don't know like what happened to the lead singer. Someone listening to this could be like, Malorie, did she kill that lead singer of the band? No, I didn't. I don't know like what happened to her, but she just like, I guess like, I don't know, like wasn't committed, like didn't need attention. I have no idea. But I was like, I need 1,000 eyes to stare at me all of the time. Okay. So
Okay.
yes, I will be the lead singer of your band. And these girls at the time, their band was called Mail Order Brides. Love that name. Love that name. But because I was so sure that like we were going to be famous, I did my research and I Googled the name and I was like, does anyone else have Mail Order Brides? And there was this band in Germany. And so they had the name. And I was like, we're going to be famous. So we need to change our name so that there's no copyright issues. Can you imagine, 2 bands feuding?
Very forward thinking of you at that age.
Thank you very much. Like I said, Malorie at 16 was so smart. She was like such an entrepreneur, risk taker. So anyways, I decided that we should be called School Boy Glamour.
Okay.
What? So after just one rehearsal with School Boy Glamour, I knew that we had it. I was like, I called up the local music bar, Hoagie Bar Michaels, and for all those OC people out there listening. And I asked for their available performance dates. And what was wild was they were like, we just had a cancellation. Can you perform this Friday? I was like, hell yes, of course, we will be there.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to the bar itself, this music bar, we only had written 1 song.
Oh, gosh.
So we had to write 4 songs by Friday. Okay, we were rehearsing every day after school, and guess what? We did it.
Really?
We did it.
Okay.
Yeah, we totally did it. No inhibitions, like no fucks given. We were just like, boom, we're performing. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And guess what? We weren't half bad. Okay.
Really? I'm not surprised, actually.
What? What? It like just shocks me. Like we were okay. And my makeout friend that I had mentioned earlier, like he came and his band was like successful, and he was just like, damn, Malorie, like your guys are like kind of good. Like your show was better than our first show. So I was like, oh my God, we're gonna be famous. Like, oh my God. And we had all of just like so many cool things happen to us. Like we recorded an album. This is 2004. We recorded like a lo-fi album.
Uh-huh.
What? Okay. We sold merch. We made t-shirts. One of the members of my band was like an artist. So she drew all the art for like the t-shirts and the buttons. We sold our CDs. And our claim to fame was opening for this band, Sleater Kinney, which if you don't know who that is like an all-girl band. And we were an all-girl band as well. And Carrie Brownstein from Portlandia was the like lead singer in this band.
Wow.
Yeah. Big deal. Okay. And what I realized was like performing in SBG, Schoolboy Glamour, was like the greatest time of my life.
Right.
I never felt so alive. The way it just like magically worked, like writing, performing, even selling tickets, like there was like no red tape. Like we just had like unbridled ambition. Like I'd be at school and I'd like write, like I'd be like, school math, whatever we were doing. And I'd just be like writing songs. And then in the afternoon, we just would like make the music. And the weirdest, this is what I think is really funny.
Okay.
So like, we also like for all these shows that we played, we had to like sell tickets. So it was like kind of like a bringer comedy show, but it was like a bringer musician show. So we'd have to sell tickets, and I was really good at selling tickets, and the other girls were like so. And so I made them each have to sell 10 tickets.
Oh, why am I getting like PTSD flashbacks from hearing you say that to people, huh, Malorie? Tell me why.
Yes, I was brutal. I'd make these girls sell tickets, and I'd tell them if they didn't sell tickets, then they'd have to buy the tickets themselves. Oh, it was bad. And what's so wild to me, because as I'm like replaying this story in my head, I'm like we would make, like we'd sell, I don't know, like maybe 400, 500. I remember one time we sold $800 worth of tickets, and we'd give that money to the bar and we didn't get anything back.
Oh God. Yeah. Wow. That's such a ripoff.
Nothing back. There was but we were literally just paying to play. Like,
right.
No percentage back, nothing. I don't know. So, but it was still thrilling. Like, and to think, I was like, what were we doing? I don't know. But I was having the time of my life. And,
right.
And then for some reason, I don't know how this all happened, but we all had like the same dream. And the dream was college. Oh, the biggest scam in America. Well, one of the biggest scams in America. And so I decided that my real dream was not School Boy Glamour. It was actually musical theater.
Of course.
Right? And which I knew musical theater would then lead to Broadway, and then Broadway would then lead to me getting my own TV show.
Right.
And then I would become Tina Fey.
How much of the Tina Fey name have you acquired thus far? Are you Jennifer T still, or do we have the "na" added yet?
Oh my God! Yeah, that was like my trajectory.
Right.
And I ended up going to NYU, and it was a dream come true. It was like, oh my God, this is my dream, right? But ironically, going to NYU crushed all of my dreams.
Oh, please do explain.
Oh my God. It was I don't want to use the word traumatic, but it basically it just killed the flame that I had to be a performer. And I didn't sing for years after graduating.
Really? Why?
Yeah. So they say that college is about breaking you down.
Uh-huh.
An art school. Art school is about breaking you down and teaching you techniques so that when you enter the real world, you are stronger than before at 18 years old. And what they didn't do at NYU was they broke you down, but they forgot to put you back together. That was like, yeah.
And you went through Tisch, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But okay, never mind. I have more questions about that later, but go on.
Yeah. So you can ask me if you want, but yeah, basically I graduated from musical theater school. I went on a small theater tour. And then I did a regional production of Hairspray. Fun story. If anyone's familiar with Hairspray, there are, like the black kids and there are the white kids. And okay. I, being mixed race, black and white, I played a white kid, but I understudied all of the black gals.
I was gonna ask, but
yeah. So that was me, and it was around that show that I realized everyone was super happy and super grateful to be there, and I was grateful to be there, but I was like, this is not what I want to do. Like something's missing, and I stopped singing. I stopped auditioning for musicals and everything. And I just stopped everything. And I became a waitress, and I just tried to figure out what am I supposed to do with my life? And I was in therapy. And then in therapy, I was like, I'll try an improv class. And 5 years later, here I am as a stand-up comic.
Hey, look, that's a beautiful place to be. And it's interesting because I'm seeing elements of that, clearly elements of that are served. So for those of you guys who are listening and haven't had the pleasure of meeting Malorie, I joked earlier about the ticket and the PTSD, but the reason for it is because one of the things that Malorie does well is she works with a lot of the barkers down on West 4th Street and in the Village. So if you've ever been in the West Village, those people who come up to you selling you comedy tickets, a lot of them really kind of report to Malorie. Tell me if I'm wrong. You're
totally right. You are totally right. And when I saw myself as that 16-year-old kid selling tickets and then having to sell tickets for comedy shows, it kind of came full circle. I was like, yeah, I am good at this. I am a salesperson. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to hide behind the fact that I can sell something well.
No, look, you're phenomenal at it. And also, the other thing that I thought was interesting was that you mentioned, you had a stint as a waitress, but I feel like that's part of the journey, right? How many artists, and I mean actors, comedians, whatever it is, spent some time working in the service industry because it gave them the flexibility to go in and out for auditions as needed.
100%. Yeah. And that was what I was doing when I was trying to figure out, like, when I decided I no longer liked musical theater. I still love watching it. Don't like doing it though. Don't like dedicating so much time and hours to that. But so waitressing was great for me. I loved it. Hated it. I made a ton of money. I worked at a super fancy nightclub. I was a bottle waitress for 6 years. I made so much money, paid off a lot of my student loans, most of them. And just got to like, and it was actually, I'd met a lot of famous people. I'd served a lot of famous people, and that was cool. And one guy that I served was like a lawyer, for entertainment lawyer. And he was connected to a lot of different like famous people. And he actually had said to me one night when I was waitressing at his table, he was like, "Wow, you're really funny." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Please tell me you're not an actor." And I was like, "Oh, I'm an actor." You know, I was still trying to be Tina Fey. Granted, I know she's a writer, but like turned actor. But I was like, yeah, like, he's like, "You know what? I think you're really funny. And I think if you did stand up, I think it would open doors for you."
Right.
That I think if you just if you try to enter this world as an actor, he's like, "I don't think you're going to get what you really want." And then in that same week, I was in an improv class at that time, and there was a comic in the class, or an improver in the class, who was a stand-up comic and a very successful one. And he was, just doing improv just for fun. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he was like, "You're really funny. You should do stand-up." And I never thought of myself as a funny person. Never.
Right.
I was
Right.
I don't know. Like, I'm a performer. I don't know what to do with that. Like, I'm trying to be an actor, like, I'm trying to be on Parks and Rec, The Office, 30 Rock, the best shows. I'm trying to do that. But for whatever reason, it's not working. And then I found stand-up, and stand-up was, at the time, School Boy Glamour, my band, was the best thing that ever happened to me and the most alive I ever felt. And then when I did stand-up, it felt even better.
This all makes sense because you have some of the most epic act outs on stage, like just the expressions and the eye, like, it's sometimes to like really hammer a point, you become big if you get what I'm saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, you open, and it's interesting now that I know that this is where it comes from.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how it all went down.
So, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, so if you could change anything about your story, and what exactly would you change? How would the changes be implemented?
Okay. You ready for this? No. All right. So it'd be real simple. Okay. So I would travel to the future, 2020, and I would watch Hassan Minaj's Patriot Act, where he does an episode on colleges. Mm-hmm. And I would then realize the only college that I need to go to is U of Tube. YouTube, baby. Okay.
Fair enough.
All right. And then I would be in 2005, back where I was. And I would take all of the money that I spent applying to colleges. And back in my day, college applications were like anywhere from $60 to $100. And I applied to 14 colleges. 14! And I would take all of that money and I would say, "Oh, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to YouTube." I take that money and I would spend it on School Boy Glamour going on tour.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. So we would hit the road, all right? And my drummer, she had this cute little hatchback, and we'd perform all up and down the West Coast, and reporters and bloggers, they would love us, and they'd ask us the same question. They'd be like, "Isn't it hard being an all-girl band and performing alongside all of these Slayer wannabe bands?" And and then I would respond like, sure. Like at first, anytime these like all band, all male Slayer bands, like screaming into the microphone, every time they see us roll up, they don't respect us. But once they hear our music, they can't help but dance. Okay. Like our music was dancey. It was feel good. And one time, we were performing and these dudes were like really giving us shit. And then they saw us perform and they were just like, holy shit. And like, we walked out and they were bowing. They were on their knees, bowing
Really?
down to us. Yes. They were like, we are not worthy. You are so talented. You are so great. You are a star. And I was like, I know, like we bring the heat. And so one night while opening for Sleater Kinney, La Tigra, which I don't know if you guys know about them, but like La Tigra's Kathleen Hanna just popped in to support like Carrie Brownstein, and she caught Schoolboy Glamour's last song. Oliver, Oliver, you're so sweet. And the crowd is just like, they're going wild, they're dancing, they're having so much fun. And so like we leave the stage and we're in our dressing room and we don't do drugs. We're just like chugging water,
Of course.
We're nerds. We're nerds. And we're like chugging water. And then like Kathleen Hanna like knocks on our door, and then like we open it and I'm like, oh my God, it's like La Tigra's like lead singer. Oh my God. And then she asked me, she pops the question. She's like, will you marry me? And I'm like, oh my God, yes. And by marry, I mean, will you just go on tour with La Tigra? And we were like, yeah.
I was gonna say, that is a turn I did not see coming, but here we are. Okay, go on.
No. And La Tigra, they actually they started in New York. And so she asked School Boy Glamour, she was like, hey, come to New York. I really think you guys will love it here. And I'm like, New York City, the best city in the world? Of course. Like ever since I saw Fame with Irene Cara, I was like, I'm going to New York. I am going. Like, I love that film. I love New York City. And the stars just aligned. And Schoolboy Glamour, we're in New York. We're opening for La Tigra. We end up, doing all these live performances up and down the East Coast. And I'm now calling like New York my home.
Right.
And it's just like, I'm just overflowing with like the live energy, like the audience, like that vibration. They're like, my thing is like, dance, motherfuckers. Like, like I need you to dance because it feels so good. And anyways, so like, I'm just like overwhelmed. Like each night I'm in New York, like I'm barely even like 21, and it's just like every night I'm performing and it's so much fun and there's this intensity and like I can't sleep. So I start like dabbling in like joke songs.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I start to get silly, super silly. And my bandmates, they're sleeping, but like I'm up, and I decide to like make, some like videos because like I went to, the only college that matters, U of Tube. And so I just start like posting these like, very like silly lo-fi like music videos under this solo project name, Malorie Ism. And my album is called Metaphorical Sleaze.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I just make a bunch of joke songs about like making out, like being a 21-year-old virgin. And it's just like funny. Okay. And I start, getting a little bit of a following, and it's cool, nothing like crazy. And so School Boy Glamour, we're still doing our thing. We're like working with La Tigra, and it's been about like, we're closing for them in New York, the last show, like at Webster Hall. Okay. And it's like, I'd realized we'd been on the road now since like the West Coast tour and then this East Coast thing for about 3 years. Mm-hmm. And it like takes a toll. It's like being on the road, like we're not rich, like we're not famous, like we're not like, freaking going to hotels. We're like sleeping in cars. We're like, we're like sleeping on people's couches, and it's like taking a toll on our bodies. And my drummer is just like, Mal, like, I can't do this anymore. And so she goes back to California. And then the girl who played keys and the other girl who played bass, they always wanted to open a bakery. And so like, they were like, we're going to open a bakery. And I was like, oh, that's cute. But like, I still wanted to keep going, I was like, I'm heartbroken, but I knew that like this chapter, like the School Boy Glamour chapter of my life was like, it's over, like, what am I going to do? Like start, like get other bandmates? I don't know. It just didn't quite feel right. And then one of my silly music videos like went viral, and I was like, oh shit, maybe I should like just do like a mini tour, like a Malorieism tour. And one night I was performing at this bar, 169 bar. Do you know it? They have like comedy, and they also have, it's in the Lower East Side, and they also have like music and stuff. So like one night I'm performing there, and after my show, this like guy comes up to me and he's like, you're so funny and you're so talented. And I'm like, and he's like, okay, I play bass, and I'm a comedian, and you're black and white and I'm black and white. So let's make our own silly talk show with sketch, music videos, and pranks. And I was like, okay, that sounds like really fun, but like, okay, thank you. But like, what's your name? He was like, Eric Andre. And this is my sidekick, Hannibal. And I was like, oh, this is so great to meet you guys. Like, I'd definitely be down. I'd definitely be down to do this with you guys. There's just one thing, like my best friend, she has to come along too. Like she has to be, part of the show, because, we kind of like went viral together. And he's like, oh yeah, who's your best friend? And I'm like, she's actually over there at the bar, Maria Bamford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, wow. Clearly.
And Eric Andre was like, dope. Okay, so we were thinking we'd call the show Malorie Bryant's Musical Romp.
His idea, of course.
Yeah, his idea, of course. And I just was like, oh my God, like the show meant so much to me. Being on the show, I learned, more about being silly, writing sketch. And then I found my truest calling, which was stand-up. And now, I perform at the Cellar, and people like Jim Gaffigan are like, let's do a dual tour, Malorie. Hot pockets.
First off, love it. Absolutely love the retelling of that story. That had some pizzazz in it. It had a little bit of everything. I'm absolutely loving the energy. Wow, that was wonderful. When I launched the first episode of this podcast, we had Gianmarco Ceresi, who I know you know from performing with Gianmarco. And one of the things that he mentions is that when you go to Tisch, you build all these connections, people who are in different elements, and it helps you push forward. So I noticed that in your retelling, you decided to go to YouTube as opposed to taking advantage of the Tisch network. Would you want to expand a little bit on why?
Yeah. To me, it was simple. I think everyone wishes that they had all the knowledge that they had in their 30s at 18.
Right.
What I realized was that I was living a life that I thought made sense. Like, it didn't make sense to go on the road with School Boy Glamour, even though we had some decent success. Like, I really believe we could have gone on the road, right. But that didn't, it's 2005. That doesn't make sense. Like, it makes sense to go to the university of your dreams, right? And then that university is going to open doors for you. You're going to get these connections. You're going to get to be on Broadway. And for some kids at NYU, that was their path. But for me, I always like the phrase, your flaws point you in the direction of what you're actually good at. And I didn't learn that until I was like in my 20s. But I was good. Like, I was a good singer. I was a good dancer, but I wasn't the best. Right. I was a good actor. I was the best. That one, I was the best. The way that my band, like now looking back, like my band allowed me to have creative autonomy. And I didn't realize how important that was to me until I was like doing theater and realizing you have zero creative autonomy pretty much. And obviously stand-up has 100% creative autonomy. And that is why that is way more right for me. But I was doing what people told me to do. Does that make sense? Like
Absolutely.
I was going to a good school because that's what you're supposed to do. And I was a straight A student. I was, and I did go to an arts high school where I was doing musical theater. I did all that, but like the band was the only thing that I truly loved.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that I was doing that I would do for free. Like every self-help book's always like, what would you do for free? That's probably a good indicator of like where your career should go. Mm-hmm. Whereas like I was thinking the opposite way around. Like, oh, if I go to NYU, like John Marco said, like I would get connections, but those connections I was getting was not actually for the industry I wanted to be in.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
But I didn't know that until after. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No. I think that's an important point. That's why I wanted to expand on it. But wow, thank you. So
totally. And also, I think because there was a girl who's in my class and she's very famous and she won the Golden Globe for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. And Rachel Bloom, she was so funny and we were in all the classes together and she was taking improv and like doing UCB stuff. And that wasn't even on my trajectory. All I thought was you go to this school, you book Broadway, and then Broadway leads to TV.
Right.
That's the right trajectory. And for a lot of people that could be like Kristen Bell, that was her trajectory. Jane Krakowski, that was her trajectory. Megan, I always forget how to say her last name. The girl who's Karen from Will and Grace, Megan Malorie.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about. I'm not going to butcher her last name either.
Yeah. That's her trajectory too. It's like Broadway and then TV. And Deborah Messing, same thing, Broadway and then TV. And so it made sense, but it wasn't right for me.
Okay. Perfect. A few things I'm going to share with you really quickly. So I'm a little jealous of you because my theater career peaked in high school. My problem it's not that I couldn't sing, it was that I couldn't sing well. You know what I mean? That difference. Like I remember my senior year for my one solo. It took me 4 years to get a solo. And I worked for months not to sound good like most people do. I worked for months not to sound bad. You know what I mean? And that's a huge difference. So I'm jealous that you can sing. There's that. But also, I recognize that sometimes things happen for a reason. Totally. And I've always said that if I could sing and had a six-pack, I'd probably never wear shirts and probably be a bad person. So there's that. So here we are.
100%. Yeah. And I know that I believe all of the things happen the way they're supposed to happen because at the end of the day, like I love stand-up comedy. Being in the band was great, but telling jokes is way better and way more my speed. Cause I could never have survived on the road. Like I'm not a road type person. Yeah. And I even watched to prepare for this. I watched the, my favorite band, La Tigra, when I was in school. I watched the documentary about, Kathleen Hanna, who was the lead singer of all these different bands. And they literally said like how hard it is to be on the road. And when you're a successful band, but even if you're not like, when you're not super famous, but you're a band that's successful and they have a following, like the road is rough, and that's not my personality. I would never want to like be on the road like that. That's just not me. Obviously I would have done it in my 20s if I had the opportunity, but the little theater tour that I did on the road, like that was like, I think 3 months. And I was like, oh my God, I need a home and I need like a kitchen and I need like my own bed. And I think it all happened the way it was supposed to happen, obviously. But what I did learn when I was 16 and to what I now preach in my 30s is that you really have to dedicate all of your energy to what you truly love.
So we like to end this podcast by asking for a quick childhood story to put the smile on your face or like, generally makes you feel all warm inside. So is there a story like that you could share with us quickly?
It's kind of like an adult weird story, but I'll tell it anyways. So I think I was like 18 when this happened. I got my wisdom teeth taken out. And I was in so much pain, like so much pain. And I was like, on all the drugs. Cause like after you're like on all these drugs. And I remember my aunt had picked me up from the doctors or whatever. You need someone to drive you home. Right. And I'm home. I'm in my bed. And then I remember my dad comes, knocks on the door. My parents are divorced, so they didn't live in the same house. So my dad like comes, knocks on the door, and I'm in so much pain. And I don't even say anything. And my dad just like grabs me and hugs me and like kisses me on the forehead. And that's like one of my favorite memories of like my whole, like, I'm weirdly like it's like childhood-ish, like teenage years. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I hadn't like been in so much pain. Like you remember when you were a kid and you'd like fall and you get scrape up your knee and then your parents would like kiss the boo-boo and,
of course.
But I hadn't been in so much pain and then gotten a hug from my dad at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like an adult, but not an adult yet. So it was just like, it's one of those memories that just sticks out in my mind as like one of the best memories of just like that dichotomy of like so much pain and yet so much joy of my dad just like hugging me and being like, I needed this.
So first off, that's a super cute story, like super, super cute. I said, oh no, when you said he hugged you, because in my head, like the way I thought you were going is I thought he didn't know and hugged you in such a way that hurt your face. And I was like, oh no, the pain.
No, I knew that's what you thought, but no, it wasn't like that. It was just like, especially when you're at that age, when you're a teenager and you're so like gung-ho on like, I'm an adult, like I know what I'm doing, I don't need any love from my parents. And then like my dad, I was in so much pain, and when he gave me that hug, it was just like,
No, of course,
so many years.
I get that. So we generally like to pick a charity or an organization that the guest is passionate about. Do you have a charity for us?
One of the cool charities I donated to this year, besides obviously like Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, because I did those too, but one of the ones that I thought was really cool was this one that's called Charity Water. Mm-hmm. And they give water to different communities in Africa and different third world countries, and they provide, like, they make wells and stuff. And I wrote a joke about that, where I was like, going to this wedding and being like, oh my gosh, like that bride's dress cost $4,500. Wells in Africa. All of Africa could have drinking water, but no, she's got a dress.
Of course.
She's got a dress, so.
Do you have if you have the link for of that, send it to me and I'll include it in the link. It has been so wonderful to have you on. I'm so excited. I've really enjoyed your story. Thank you for coming on the Revisionary Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
The Revisionary Podcast.
I really enjoyed listening to Malorie's story. I mean, quite honestly, I don't think that I would have been able to do some of the things that she did. And I think it's pretty cool that she was like, from the get-go, like she kind of had that mindset to try to grow her band and, make sure that they grew as a whole. I too was a member of a bit of a boy band when I was in high school. I mean, looking back on it, it was a lot of fun and I'm glad that we did it. I do think it was a little silly. I know people made fun of us for it, but I had so much fun hanging out with my friend Kevin. Shout out to Kevin if you're listening to this. We were called Los Fly Boys. We were basically a group that he used to sing in Spanish and I would rap in Spanish, and that was a crucial part of my teens. We actually created 2 songs. I don't know if they're out there. I'll have to reach out to Kevin to see if he still has those songs anywhere. But I would love to re-listen to them because at the time I thought they were pretty good. Like, I was really excited. I remember when we dropped our first song named Carosel, I was like, this is it. I'm winning the Latin Grammy Award. That is what is going to happen now. I am going to be a famous musician. Ultimately, as fun as making music is, I realized it wasn't my path. But I know Kevin pursued it for a while longer, and, shout out to him because he was a phenomenal singer, and I really enjoyed working with him. But so I'm glad that she brought this up because it had me reminiscing. And as always, I want to say to all of you revisionaries out there, thank you for listening.
This is